Morning, guys. What is it? January 2nd. New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Up at the top of the canal. It's pretty stinky. We haven't had a whole lot of rain events, but we've had a few. Still seems like there's bacterial blooms happening. Can't really test for it. The data sets that we're testing here are indicative of bacterial bloom, but they cannot identify bacteria. That is a lab and a culture and all kinds of stuff. Does not happen in the winter, but we can still keep tracking dissolved oxygen, temperature, salinity, ORP, and all the other data sets that can indicate pollution and bacterial blooms and all the rest of it. It is cold today. Holy shit, is it cold. Very quiet on the canal. No work going on in the head house here. At that tank, the guys are on the barge. Good morning, guys. 9th Street, January 3rd. What is it? Air temp is 34, water temp is 43. We're about 6 inches after low tide and rising. The canal, in general, the water quality has been better. There's been fewer rain events, and the colder temperatures mean a higher dissolved oxygen content, but I can still see the rain events, the CSO events, having an effect in what I consider to be a bacterial bloom. I cannot prove that because I do not have an Enterococcus test. But the data sets that I'm measuring or trying to measure that are indicative of water quality, CSO events, the things that I can measure instantly with this unit is a very good unit, very precise, defendable data, all that kind of stuff that tells us what water quality is. And you can still see the water quality fluctuate depending on rain and CSO. Morning, guys. Up at 4th Street Turning Basin. I want to continue talking about water quality. Generally, the water quality that we're interested in, I'm interested in, dredgers, most people are interested in, is the water quality that will sustain life. The Clean Water Act has that set at 3 milligrams per liter, I think, is the official measurement of dissolved oxygen in order to sustain biological life. And that is the point at which below that we can see fish kills like we had last year during the worst CSO events. Why the dredgers have been interested in taking on this water quality issue, and me personally, why I'm interested in taking this on, is that there is such a lack of available data, and that data is not necessarily able to be read in the cleanest of ways for easy understanding. Good morning, guys. Just want to keep talking about what is water quality. I'm here at 1st Street end. This is the drain stormwater outfall that also captures the ghost stream from back up the hill somewhere. Creates a little tide pool in this raised or mid-tidal area right here. I don't know if you can see in there, but there are mummy chog swimming around, and there's also a coal tar bloom floating on top of the water. The coal tar, generally, as far as I can tell, with all the things that I test, does not affect water quality. The oxygen content can be the same regardless of if I'm measuring it underneath the coal tar bloom or not. And the fish, I've seen, you know, massive schools of fish swimming around underneath the coal tar, and even occasionally, you know, surface feeding, splashing around in the coal tar. So it doesn't affect water quality as far as I can measure it and as far as I observe. Okay, so water quality, and here we are up at the head of the canal, and this might show it really well. So there's still coal tar coming out up here, right? And it's very troubling and disturbing. It's coming out of the bulkhead right here. This steel piling was drove in and around the openings in this street end. So it continues. The steel pile is at, you know, full height right here and here, and across the bottom it is at the bed of the canal. So it continues across. It's got all this like funny aqua block stuff to kind of like do like a sticky fill, and they've cut this sheet around to try and, you know, match it as closely as possible to the existing bulkhead. I'm not sure exactly why this bulkhead is not been fixed or done or replaced in some way. I get that it's really complicated. There's outfalls and there's flushing tunnel, but across the other side there you can see there's a little square thing right there that was done in and around new bulkhead. And then down here where we got this big concrete CSO outfall, that was all done in and around bulkhead. All right, and to continue that, so the napple the coal tar napple, whatever the petroleum stuff is, does not affect water quality. Water quality up the head of the canal is still pretty bad. It's just measured 2.5 dissolved oxygen, and that is to do with combined sewer overflow, right? Which is all this flotsam that you see in the water here. All of this stuff is stormwater overflow. It's all the stuff that comes out of the drains when we have a rain event. And even though that rain event was a while ago, it's still, with flushing tunnel being off, it still takes a long time to clear up at the head of the canal. So even though it's winter, even though it's cold, even though, you know, dissolved oxygen down at 9th Street was like 12, it gradually drops as you come up. And then as soon as you get from 3rd Street to, you know, from 3rd Street to here, those last 6 blocks or whatever it is, it just plummets, you know, and that is the problem, and that's what we're, you know, that's the biggest thing that drives water quality. Morning guys, here we are up at the end of 4th Street Turning Basin. This section here is meant to get excavated a little bit past 3rd Avenue, cleaned out at some point. But it's also the first area of the canal that was dredged in the pilot program, where they've capped and everything. And this end right here, where this bulkhead is put in as kind of like a bit of a container box, this will get pulled out, and this will continue, the dredging will continue up through here and around the bridge and stuff at some later date. But you can see that there is coal tar or some kind of petroleum product that is coming out from above. this little bulkheaded section, the section of the canal that was not remediated. But you can also see all the flotsam, and how on the other side you can see there's probably a little bit of windblown coal tar residue stuff, and all the stormwater runoff stuff that you can see collected in the corner. Morning guys, up at Douglas Street end, water quality testing. It's actually better up here today than it was 2 days ago. 2 days ago I tested 2.5 dissolved oxygen here. We've had a little bit of west wind, and it's always the wind that seems to change the dissolved oxygen the fastest, like in less than 24 hours. But here we go, the old classic Coney Island whitefish, right? How do you know it's CSO? Right there, that's it. That's been flushed. There's still up here, there's all kinds of debris from, you know, like CSO overflow, stormwater overflow. There's a lot of stuff up here, and you can see the water is still kind of milky green brown, and that tells me that there's still somewhat of a bacterial bloom up here. No way to test for that because it needs enterococcus test. Survey boat is here trying to find out where this coal tar is coming from. It's out here somewhere. You know, they're just constantly chasing that to find out how to stop. Morning guys, Thursday the 18th. Low tide this morning was at 8:04. It was a 0.1 foot low tide, so we're getting into our low end of low tides in that part of the month. You can see there's more shoreline over there. Canal's very dirty. Still got coal tar. We got all kinds of flotsam stuff. Very brown, dirty water, and it's cold. We've had some thaw freeze stuff, so everything's like really icy now. Being extra careful. Taking my readings on my way to work, wrapped up, extra warm. Definitely winter. We're in the thick of it. Workers are still working, all the construction's still happening. You know, stuff keeps going. Good morning guys, out at 19th Street this morning at the Gowanus Dredger's bunker launch site, just checking on the dock and our salvaged floating items. That wind and all that rain last night, have to kind of batten the hatches, make sure everything's safe. We did get a little bit of flooding. There's still some coastal flooding right there. A lot of detritus debris in the water. The wind is blowing it all in this corner right now. Deciding to test out here this morning for a change. I don't always come out this far, but it'll be interesting to see what the numbers say. Would expect it to be a lower salinity. Probably DO will probably be high out here. You can see how high this tide is coming. This is just a pretty normal tide, 5.3 feet this morning, with the rain and everything that's on top of it. I don't think there was a surge associated with this tide, so this is just rain and tidal action. Not actually that. Morning guys, up at Douglas Street. Here we go, classic CSO overflow. Just everything that goes in the drain ends up in the canal. A lot of stormwater overflow as well, like street ends, plastic. There we go, there's our favorite Coney Island whitefish. It's stinky up here. all of these little bits of particulate and floaty parts. You know, I'm not actually sure what this is. I used to think it was like plant vermiculite and stuff from roads, but I don't know, maybe it's like the floaty parts of sewage. It's every CSO event, and this is all the way out, you know, all the way at the harbor at 19th Street. It's pretty ugly. Very dirty. What I've been reading so far this morning, the temperature is raised, like the water temperature raised 4 degrees. Just the sheer volume of different rain water, you know, like surface water off the streets, sewer water. Morning guys, what is it, 7:30, close to 7:20, just about high tide right now. Bridge is just coming down. Guys are already gone up the canal, getting ready to do the work. Today's tide is actually bigger than yesterday, right? It's a 5.5 tide today. Yesterday was a 5.3. And all of that flooding was caused by rain. It was caused by precipitation falling on all of our roofs, our roads, everything being flushed into the sewer. All of the flooding was not due to a tidal surge, which sometimes happens with storms when they push a bubble of water, a bump of water in front of them. And that's a surge. That's what we had in Sandy. This was a regular high tide with a bunch of rain on it. Impressive that it actually makes that much difference. I asked some weather friends of mine if there was a surge. No surge. It was all precipitation. Just kind of timing. I'll work my way up through the canal, see what it is. It looked pretty ugly yesterday. It was pretty stinky as I got further up, but we'll see how it is today. Here we are up at 4th Street Turning Basin. Pretty calm today, much calmer winds. I'm looking at the tide line on the piling right there. Yesterday that piling was covered. You can just see an inch or two. Looks like the tide has already dropped, or possibly awake from the work boats as they come up. Might make a little bit of a higher tide line, but a lower, even though this is a statistically measured higher high tide than yesterday without the rain, this is more accurate, and it's not the coastal flooding that was caused by all the rain. Impressive, that much rain, all flowing downhill, all going into the drains, all going in the roads, the street ends, all ended up in the canal, making a bump of water that floods our coastal. I can see some little fish lines out there. That's impressive. Some fish on the surface. Still up at 4th Street, so just looking at the tide line. I think that was probably wake. Maybe it is dropping. It looks like that was less here than what I was seeing at the end of the Turning Basin for that little tide line. So I'd say we're just about at dead high right now. Generally there's a 20-minute lag between the tide station, which is out on the end of Erie Basin, and here in the canal. It's a little bit strange. Tide is a hard thing to note and predict. The data sets where they're measured and information just kind of gets extrapolated in between. I can see fish moving again. Nice. Just right on the surface. Surprised to see him in here after this CSO. The salinity is creeping back up. Yesterday was, you know, almost fresh. especially at the top of the canal. Today is getting to be a little bit more normal salinity, 12, 16. I think normal is like in the 20, 18, 20, somewhere around there for the canal. All right. Morning guys, up at 2nd Street, dead high tide. Can't see barely any tide line on there, even though the boats come up through. So this must be about dead high. What a difference, huh? 24 hours. Yesterday, all that flooding, all the rain from the night before. This is actually a bigger tide, according to the tide charts. 5.5 feet today, 5.3 yesterday. We got a little bit of saltwater intrusion in the sponge park, so this is marsh, salt marsh sponge parks. Nothing in the street end. We had some flooding in our boathouse yesterday. It actually got up to running underneath the threshold of the door there. Incredible, right? Everything was rain. That bump of water was all rain. Impressive. See little movement on the water. Wonder if the mummy chogger around. Can't actually see the fish, but I can see movement. Just little trace lines as they skim along the surface. There we go. Good morning. Up at the head of the canal, Douglas Street, and I think I've just been lucky enough to catch the turn of the tide right up in the head of the canal. I mean, I just love all this stuff. All this, like, the big ticking of the clock, you know, the world, the universe, gravity, planetary movements. This is the kind of stuff I nerd out about. But this bubble of water, you know, this high tide kind of bumps into land masses, moves around, squeezes into places. And our tide station is out at Erie Basin, and it squeezes up to the canal, so it has a little pulse and a bulge that comes up the canal, a little bit delayed after that data from the tide station. Comes up to the canal, reaches its zenith, I guess, you know, the height, and it's just bouncing back and started to fall. There's usually a period, what we call slack tide, of like a hesitation, you know, right at the bottom of the tide, right at the top of the tide. There's a little hesitation, and then it starts to change, and the current will gradually increase and move on. And here's all this nasty CSO overflow. That's all. So usually with a giant CSO flood like this, we would see rats in the water. They don't always bob up until they start to float, and then they'll start floating. Gowanus footballs, we call them. Haven't seen any rats. Not sure if there's like a population decline in the winter for those guys underground. I can't imagine it, but maybe 3 or 4 days or so, and there'll be the Gowanus footballs will start floating and bobbing up. Every time there's a big CSO event, there's another carpet of sediment solids, CSO solids, that gets deposited on the bottom of the canal. The cap is actually designed to be dredged on top, because that was a known engineering problem. So the whole top of the canal here is going to get dredged again right before the CSO tank comes online. So in another 5 years or so, this top portion will be dredged out of. Predominantly it will be just CSO sediment. That was a known thing. Douglas Street end. These guys, not sure if they We're aware that this tide was going to be so much. There's going to be some salty engines here. Hopefully they'll be okay. Oh, that's pretty deep down here. Well, hopefully I don't fall off my bike and get a boot full of water. Got some stuff floating away. What I want to do is be able to get over there so that I can oh, this is a bit shallower here. There we go. Oh yeah, I can walk here. Got some stuff floating. Fortunately, these beds have all gotten salty and wet now. Here we go. I think Rita's been, it's funny, the cat food plates have floated away. So this came over here. Huh. Interesting. Pretty nasty. Oh great, there's our classic Coney Island whitefish. Yeah, always, right there. So this is sewer water and it's overflowing into the street. Good morning guys, just coming up to 2nd Street. We got some big tide today, 5.6 tide, but all that rain last night. Oh, it's in our boathouse, bummer. All that rain last night creates flooding. You know, it's like a bump in the water in the canal that means that the tide is that much higher. It's not a surge caused from the tidal end, from the sea end. It's actually land-based rain-induced flooding on top of a tide. But there we go. In our boathouse, bummer. That looks like it was worse than it was earlier in the week. Oh yeah, all the way up. Okay, we got some stuff falling over there. Hopefully most of our stuff is off the floor. Oh, somebody put a fan down. Shit. Okay, let me go and sort that out. Good morning guys. Tuesday morning. It's cold. Winter weather advisory. Snow. Meant to be turning to sleet later. The tides are getting smaller. We had a big tide across the weekend, caused a lot of flooding. You know, you can see how green brown the water is. There's bits and flotsam debris in here. That's CSO. I didn't manage to get out yesterday. It was too cold. But testing today in the snow. It's pretty out, you know. It's a little chilly, but it's pretty out. You know, the city continues. Window guys are doing their glass recycling. Seems to be a bit quieter on the roads traffic wise. I'm sure we'll get a lot of salt and stuff, you know, like rock salt. I'm interested to see how that affects the numbers. Should be able to read that salinity in some way. Usually after a CSO storm event, you know, the salinity drops almost down to fresh in the canal. It's kind of amazing how much it drops, and also impressive how fast the salinity creeps back up before the pH and before all the other numbers. Morning guys. 4th Street Turning Basin, very still, very calm, very dirty. The DO at 9th Street was some of the highest I've seen, 13 point something. Cold water, the turbulence of the stormwater runoff generally raises dissolved oxygen, and then it also lowers salinity and pH, and then as the bacterial bloom creeps in, the dissolved oxygen drops, the pH continues to drop, until something happens to change it. Usually the west wind kicks in, or has been kicking in the winter patterns. It doesn't happen so much in the summer, but in the winter it definitely happens, kicks in, and can just change water quality overnight within 12 hours sometimes. Very, very impressive. It's hard to actually, predict and see what's happening. There's like a rough idea. I have a kind of seat of the pants gut feel of what happens in the canal now. Now this bit I love, right? These guys just keep going. No wintry mix for them. Union strong. Yeah. No messing around. Looks like they're actually still laying mats today. That means there's a diver in the water. Support crew. Great. Love it. Just keep on going. Morning guys. Douglas Street end. We got a lot of accumulated snow. I don't know, it might even freeze. Possibly, maybe. I don't know what's happening with the oh, it looks like they're picking up their fencing. I thought they were getting ready to cover this off so they could do some aqua block. Yeah, canals, here we go, coal tar, CSO yuckiness trapped in the snow. Be interesting to see what this precipitation does, right? I mean, it's still gonna melt and end up in the canal. Something going on down at the bridge there. I'm not sure what that's all about. They got fire truck either side. Hope it's okay. I saw the crew there hooking up another mat, so they got divers in the water. They're continuing. I think that flashing light thing is something to do with the bridge or the opening or the road, maybe. It's cold and getting wet. Be glad to get this reading and go to work and warm up. Good morning guys. Wednesday morning. Very bright and clear today, very cold. We got a frozen snow, all this kind of freezing rain, frozen snow, a little slippery here. Being extra careful today. Do not want to end up in the canal. That would be really shitty. I could climb out here, one of the few places where you can actually climb out of the canal. This little area right here by 9th Street. Somebody did fall in here somewhere, somehow. Last year, fire crews showed up to pull them out. Anybody that falls in the canal is pretty much stuck. These vertical surfaces are not scalable. You cannot get out. So unless you can hold on, people have actually drowned from just being able to not hold on even. This is a unusual area right here because there's a lot of broken shoreline, and this cribbing to protect the bridge. You can climb up. You're going to be wet and cold, but you'll be out of the water. Temperature today, air temp is 17 degrees, water temp is 39 degrees. We're about an hour after low tide. High tide is at 12:46, and it's cold. Morning guys. No water quality testing up at Douglas Street because it is frozen. All that snow settling on the surface, it's all fresh enough water, is cold enough. This is frozen over at the top of the canal. It's got a funny little kind of broken edge, where the tide rises, goes up and down, but it's frozen on top of it. I can see down in there. I don't think I can get through that. So down there just before Union Street, you can see it's water again. So there's enough movement, enough water movement to stop it from freezing, enough tidal movement to disperse the snow, but up here. This is still enough that it's just ice. Good morning, guys. Up at 4th Street Turning Basin, Thursday morning. Starting to see some ice forming in the Turning Basin here. It's kind of brackish water with all the snow, rain events that we've had. The canal is actually pretty fresh right now, fresher than normal. And there's, at the end there, by 3rd Avenue, there's a ghost stream that still makes its way into the canal, and that water seems to float a little bit more and freezes quicker. So the ends of the turning basins where the ghost streams come in freeze up quicker than the main channel where there's more movement and a higher salinity. And we've got this kind of, I think it's called brackish water ice. And it's not very strong. It's a little kind of crumbly. You can see it's kind of got some weird streams and stuff in there. But the ice is starting to form. This was not here yesterday. So, you know, cold weather. Water temp is low enough now that it can freeze on the surface. Up at Douglas Street, it was frozen over solid from the snow. Could not water test there yesterday. Morning, guys. Thursday the 18th. Low tide this morning was at 8:04. It was a 0.1 foot low tide, so we're getting into our low end of low tides in that part of the month. You can see there's more shoreline over there. Canal's very dirty. Still got coal tar. We got all kinds of flotsam stuff. Very brown, dirty water, and it's cold. We've had some thaw freeze stuff, so everything's like really icy now. Being extra careful. Taking my readings on my way to work. Wrapped up, extra warm. Definitely winter. We're in the thick of it. Workers are still working. All the construction's still happening. You know, stuff keeps going. Good morning, guys. Still up by Whole Foods, 4th Street Turning Basin, the mouth of the Turning Basin and the main channel as it goes up under 3rd Street Bridge right there. Looking down towards 9th Street, you see the train going over. I just wanted to talk about this concrete plant. This one's still operating, you know, everything comes via truck and leaves via truck, you know, all of the materials. It used to get barges up here. When I first started paddling in the canal on my stand-up board, there were barges that were tying up to this side. It'd be great if they came back, you know. Barging materials is by far the most green, you know, needs the fewest amount of fossil fuels to move that tonnage of material around. I don't know if they'll do it again after the bulkhead is done, you know, after the cleanup maybe. It would be great to see barges coming up this far. This is the Owl's Head lot where the next CSO tank is going to be. This is going to be a lovely little area when it's all done. The plans are amazing. The park, the water access, all the things is kind of leading towards the cleanness of the canal that we want. Good morning. Up at 2nd Street Dock, Thursday morning. A lot of coal tar in the water. Surprising in the winter, still comes up. It's a low tide, just after low tide and rising, so I'm guessing that this has come from somewhere south of 3rd Street, above 9th Street probably. 6th Street Turning Basin produces a lot of coal tar. Next one down, was it 6th, 7th, 8th Street, produces a lot of coal tar. On a low tide is usually when it comes up more. In the summer, you kind of get ebullition, which is like decomposition of stuff, you know, organic matter, and that causes bubbles, and the coal tar hitchhikes on the bubbles and comes up. I can't imagine that this is ebullition. This is just, you know, coming out somewhere, getting pushed up by activity or who knows what. But yeah, all kind of broken, like broken shards of glass in here today. All the pretty colors. Morning guys, up at Douglas Street end. Looks like thicker ice to me today. So I think this is going to be around for a bit. Not going to be able to water test up here. Interesting to see the different patterns and movements, stuff underneath. I don't see that plastic bag moving, so I don't think that's tide is coming in though, so it's rising. Little kind of weird scum line around the edges, around the bulkhead. Down here, if I can zoom in, you'll see where it starts to get enough open water. I'm guessing that this is all the wind-blown snow, the snow that landed in the water and then drifted, was blown up here, accumulated, and then it gets cold enough and it's got it's fresh enough that it freezes quicker, and then once it freezes, then it's kind of easy to keep going. Oh man, look, I can see the guys down there working. Wow, they're putting mats in the water. They just released another mat there, so they got a diver in. There you go. Bitter cold. Doesn't stop those guys. Good morning guys, Friday morning. Another very cold day, another very dirty day in the canal. Just coming up to low tide in about another 40 minutes or so. A lot of coal tar. Must be coming out somewhere between 9th and 3rd Street. Most likely the places I know where it comes the most is it 9th, 8th Street Turning Basin and 6th Street Turning Basin. Those areas around there. And it's a little surprising that it's coming up still in such cold weather, but here it is, lots of it. I have not seen anything above 3rd Street except for the very head of the canal, where there's a crack in the concrete bulkhead that is right by Flushing Tunnel, and that one is proven to be problematic in finding the solution for that. But I've been watching the monitoring crews chase that down, GoPros on a stick, all kinds of cameras and documentations and stuff that they're trying to fix it. Decided to come up to Union Street Bridge and test up here because it's frozen up at the head of the canal. I cannot test at my usual spot at Douglas Street. But what I realized, I don't come over this bridge very often, is that this is a great example to be able to see what these guys are doing, what the remediation process is. This is the armor plate. This is the articulated concrete mat. That's how it's all getting laid down all the way across the canal. You can see there, the guys are working. There's a diver in the water. You can see there's like bubbles coming up. Let me see if I can zoom in. All right, there's a diver in the water, and he is telling them precisely where to set that mat and unhooking it and helping place these things. They've come all the way from the top of the canal down to here, so now they're about halfway between Union and Carroll. These guys are doing great. You know, they just don't stop, right? They just keep working. But this is it. You can see the mat right here, and then across the other side you can see the mat right there. Okay, that is to protect the cap-in from any damage from above. Yep, here we are up at Douglas Street end. The crew, the work barge has come up above here, so it's broken all the ice, and I think that's what's led all this nasty water and bacterial bloom down through the canal. A lot of debris in the water, everything, all kinds of nastiness. Oh, there we go, look, classic Coney Island whitefish. How you know it's CSO. Drives me crazy. And then all throughout this, right, you know, so open sewer, and then all throughout this we got this major development, right? All of this going up, all of these eyes, all of these windows looking out over this canal. Basically an open sewer in a rainstorm. This head house is not going to be complete for another 5 years, so until then it's going to get really ugly in here, right? I guess they'll probably turn flush and tunnel on. That will help the canal maybe, but it's just going to push everything out into the harbor, so it doesn't help, it just pushes the symptoms away. Yeah, this is pretty ugly. CAG meeting tonight, we'll see what the update is. Morning guys, Wednesday morning, just did my water testing here. Bridge is going up, fuel barge is in for Bayside, looks like it's riding pretty high, so empty or close to being empty maybe. Love that little survey boat, that thing is awesome. The sonar thing on the front does all the mapping on the bottom of the canal. They do some other mapping too, survey work, but primarily like 3D mapping, geolocation of the bottom of the canal. Up here we got a float barge that has got a bunch of mats on it. Looks like that's waiting to go up the canal. A little dirty. DO right here is 5 point something, which is actually high. I would call that high for summer, but not actually that great for winter. I think there's a bacterial bloom that's working its way down through the canal and lowering DO and pH and stuff. I can't prove that. It takes an enterococcus lab, you know, to measure that marker, but all of the things I measure indicate it. Good morning guys, up at the head of the canal, Douglas Street. Very dirty up here. The DO is surprisingly better than I thought. There's an applicator there, all kinds of things. Anything that gets flushed in your toilet is going to be here in the canal. It's pretty hazy, milky, ugly. The work barge is all the way up the front here, and looks like they started grouting, which is they're like filling in the joints of the articulated armor plate, making it solid all the way across. Here's the guys working away. Didn't realize it was going to start so soon, but looks like they're getting a jump on it. It's great. Very dirty water though. Don't envy that diver that's in this. I mean, they're totally fully contained. They get sprayed off, hosed down, all the good things. You know, the same divers that dive in the sewers to, you know, make sure that our sewers are working properly. So, you know, I guess it doesn't really affect them too much. Just gotta have a lot of support to get in and out and do all the work. Have a good day. Good morning guys, Thursday morning, Knight Street Bridge. Calm, grey, gentle rain, not enough to cause a CSO event. Canal maybe looks a little bit better. High tide, high drop in tide right now. getting some numbers, waiting for the unit to come in. Just trying to keep the data going. Data is everything. Interested in the town hall meeting this evening about the brownfields and the air quality monitoring. There's been a lot more air quality monitoring the past few years than there has been water quality. I'm interested in understanding that data better. DEC doing a whole thing of basements and soil vapor stuff, you know, lots of monitoring and lots of data. There's going to be an absolute wealth of data. See what it says. Good data makes for good decisions. Good morning, guys. Up at Douglas Street now. Very dirty. All the kind of debris. I don't think there's been a CSO event. I don't think we've had enough rain to trigger anything right now, but everything is super dirty here. All kinds of flotsam. Weather's warming up a bit. Canal's extra green. Looks like it's getting greener up here. Some kind of a phyto bloom. Kind of feeds the bacterial bloom. Guys are grout. You can see the grout pump there. Coming over the edge. That pumps grout. Not sure how they're doing it this morning, but they started yesterday, and that is grout in all the gaps in between the armor plate. Finishing off, you know, carrying on the remediation and the capping. CSO, that's what we need to get fixed, and that's happening right here, right? So this is the CSO tank. I think it's got like a 5-year timeline for completion on that. That will make the canal much cleaner, but until then I think it's going to actually be pretty ugly, which is unfortunate. But up at Douglas Street, hanging out with the crew, watching a diver inspect alongside the bulkhead right here. It's pretty amazing. Love it. These guys are killing it. Great work. Good morning, guys. January 30th, Tuesday morning. About 2 hours to high tide. Very small tide today. Just over 4 feet, the entire tidal spectrum today. Next month, actually March we'll get into a big range of tides again, so that'll be our spring tides. We'll have to look out for coastal flooding with those tides. This morning we've just had the Notify NYC notification for CSO in the water just ended. It's been going for the past 36 hours. It's a notification intended to let people know to reduce their water usage within the watershed, because every time you flush, use the shower, do anything that adds to the sewer, that is essentially going into the local waterways. And it's also to let water users, people around the canal, harbor, know that there is sewage contamination in the waterways. Canal's looking very kind of a brown green today. We'll see what this does.